Okay, hey YouTube, my name is Cooper. This is The Perspective, and I am talking about the partisan human infrastructure bill that the Democrats planned on passing in the Senate solely on party lines. So passing it through the budget reconciliation process with 50 votes and 49 votes against. And it looks like all of the Senate Republicans, unlike the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which was absolutely terrible, are planning on pushing this through. The Democrats are planning on pushing this one through along partisan lines. So I'm going to talk about what's inside of the bill and break it down step by step. So the first thing is $726 billion on things like universal pre-K, childcare for working families, tuition-free community college, funding for universities, historically black universities, and expanding the Pell Grant for higher education. So all of the spending on education, the government spending on education, is the number one reason why we have a student loan crisis in the first place. When you give expanded money, guaranteed money to colleges and universities, when you give them guaranteed funding coming from the federal government, they have no incentive to compete and cut costs. They just don't. They just don't have the incentive. In fact, they know that the government is going to cover it, so they're going to keep increasing spending. And what does that look like? What does that look like? Does that mean that we keep increasing the amount of taxes and spending that we give to these higher education facilities? Now, who is that money coming from? Well, according to them, it's coming from the wealthy and it's coming from corporations. Now, let me break that down a little bit. Do you think that when the government taxes corporations, that the corporations are actually paying the taxes, like the actual entity? No, they're gonna shift the cost burden, because either the corporation head has to cut the amount of profits, he has to increase prices, he or she has to lower wages, or cut the amount of benefits that they're giving to their employees, or they have to increase the price on stockholders. So when you increase the corporation tax, which I think is the one of the worst tax in existence, it slows down the efficiency of the business. It makes for stagnant wages. It just is a bad policy. It's just bad policy, like horrible policy. And you're slowing down the overall ability of the economy to grow when you take money from people who are making investments into the economy. So you tax the wealthy, and what the wealthy are doing with that money is they're investing it. So they're investing it in companies that are profitable, in startup companies, which create more jobs, which create more opportunities for people, which makes the economy more robust. And you take the amount of resources that they have to do that, and instead you redistribute it to programs that there's no guarantee that they're going to be successful. There's no guarantee that the people who use those programs are going to be contributors to the economy in the future. And there's no guarantee that they're going to be as good at contributing to the economy to the investors. And chances are they're not. So the US economy already grows at a very slow pace. It grows every year for the most part, but it grows at a very slow, stagnant pace. And they're making it worse by putting a burden, financial burden on people. It's just a disaster. The next thing that they're planning on putting through is $170 billion to address lawful permanent status for qualified immigrants. Now, I generally am pro-immigrant, and I would have to look into this legislation a little bit more to completely understand my opinion. But I don't think that, I want to know, what are they planning on doing to address lawful permanent status for qualified immigrants? Like, what is that? Why do you need $107 billion for that? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. In my opinion, what should be done is, well, one, if I had my ideal situation, immigration would be a completely separate issue from citizenship. So just because you come here and work, which is an amazing thing, and you create jobs, it doesn't mean that you get benefits from the welfare state, number one, and it also doesn't mean that you get citizenship. Like, permanent residency is fine, but it doesn't mean that you get to vote in elections, and it doesn't mean that you get to benefit from the welfare state. But if you want to come here and contribute to the economy and build a better life for yourself, I support that. $135 billion for the Committee of Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, including money to address forest fires, reduce carbon emissions, and address drought concerns. $332 billion for the Banking Committee, including instructions to invest in public housing, the Housing Trust Fund, housing affordability, and equity and community land trusts. So what is this? This is public housing, which we already know is a failure. To make housing more affordable, local and state governments need to loosen zoning laws and allow for those who build houses to go through less loopholes to build those houses.